Commander Marcus Chen stood at the observation deck of the Human Research Station, watching the sleek Zephyrian transport ship dock with practiced precision. The crystalline hull reflected the distant stars like captured diamonds, beautiful and alien against the black void of space. His hands trembled slightly as he adjusted his uniform one final time. The diplomatic marriage had been his idea, born from desperation during the darkest days of the Terran-Zephyrian conflict. 3 years of brutal warfare had left both civilizations bleeding resources and lives. When the Zephyrian High Council proposed an unconventional peace treaty involving cultural exchange through marriage bonds, Marcus had volunteered without hesitation. The survival of humanity hung in the balance, and he would sacrifice anything for his species. Now, as he prepared to leave Earth's protection forever, doubt crept into his mind like ice water through his veins. The airlock hissed open, and 2 figures emerged that would change his understanding of the universe itself. Relish moved with liquid grace, her elongated limbs and luminescent blue skin marking her as pure Zephyrian nobility. Silver patterns traced along her arms and face, shifting colors with her emotions. Her large, multifaceted eyes held ancient wisdom that made Marcus feel like a child in comparison. Behind her walked Thesara, shorter but no less magnificent, her deep purple skin almost black in the artificial light. Where Relish embodied elegance, Thesara radiated quiet strength, the translation device activated with a soft chime. Relish spoke first, her voice like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Commander Chen, we are honored to begin this sacred bond with you. I am Relish of the 7th Star House, and this is Thesara of the Crystal Depths clan." Both aliens performed a complex gesture, involving intertwined fingers and bowed heads that Marcus had studied but never witnessed in person. Marcus returned their greeting as best he could, grateful that his months of cultural preparation hadn't been wasted. "The honor is mine, ladies. I understand the magnitude of what you're sacrificing for peace between our peoples." He paused, studying their expressions through the translation of micro-movements he'd learned. "I want you to know that I don't take this responsibility lightly." Thesara stepped forward, her voice deeper and more resonant than her companions. "We have studied human customs extensively, Marcus Chen. We know your species values individual choice above collective necessity. This makes your decision even more remarkable." Her head tilted in what Marcus recognized as Zephyrian curiosity. "Tell us truthfully, do you harbor resentment about this arrangement?" The question caught him off guard. Marcus had expected formal pleasantries, not such direct emotional inquiry. "I won't lie to you," he said carefully. "I'm terrified. I'm leaving behind everything I've ever known, everyone I've ever loved, to live among people whose biology and culture I barely understand. But I'm not resentful. This union could save billions of lives." Lirelai's silver patterns shifted to what Marcus hoped was approval. "Fear mixed with purpose. This is wisdom among our people as well. Come, let us show you your new home." The transport ship's interior defied human architectural logic. Curved walls flowed seamlessly into floors and ceilings, creating spaces that seemed to shift depending on viewing angle. Soft bioluminescent panels provided gentle light that responded to the occupant's presence. Marcus found himself constantly reaching out to steady himself against surfaces that weren't quite where his depth perception insisted they should be. The ship's design follows quantum probability rather than fixed geometry, Thesara explained, noticing his discomfort. "It will feel natural once your neural pathways adapt. Humans are remarkably flexible, more so than we initially believed." They entered what could only be described as a living room, though the furniture appeared to be grown rather than built. Relish gestured for Marcus to sit on something that looked like a cross between a couch and a giant flower. The moment he settled into it, the biomaterial adjusted perfectly to his human anatomy, providing support he hadn't known he needed. "We must discuss expectations," Relish said, settling gracefully beside him while Thesara took a position across from them. "The High Council has decreed this marriage as symbol of unity, but we 3 must decide what it means in practice. Zephyrian bonds involve mental and emotional connection that may be impossible with human neurology." Marcus felt his stomach tighten. "What exactly does that mean?" Thesara leaned forward, her expression serious. "Among our kind, married partners share thoughts, emotions, even memories through bioneural links. It creates intimacy beyond anything in human experience. Without this connection, You will always be somewhat apart from us no matter how much time passes. The weight of his isolation hit Marcus like a physical blow. He would be forever alone among aliens, playing a role in a relationship he could never truly join. I see, he managed. I suppose I should have expected that. However, Lyrelai continued, her patterns brightening, we have been researching human bonding methods. Your species creates connection through shared experience, physical touch, and something you call emotional vulnerability. These concepts intrigue us. Perhaps we can forge something new together, combining our ways with yours. Hope flickered in Marcus's chest. You're willing to try? More than willing, Thesara said firmly. We volunteered for this mission because we believe understanding between our species is not only possible, but necessary. The war taught us that isolation breeds fear and hatred. Connection breeds peace. As the ship engaged its quantum drive and Earth fell away behind them, Marcus realized his old life was ending. Everything familiar, human voices, terrestrial gravity, the taste of coffee, the smell of rain, was becoming memory. But as he looked at his two alien wives, seeing genuine curiosity and determination in their otherworldly features, he felt something unexpected blooming in his chest. Not love, not yet, but the possibility of it. And for the first time since volunteering for this impossible mission, Marcus Chen began to believe he might actually find happiness among the stars. The journey to the Zephyrian homeworld would take 3 weeks. 3 weeks to learn if 3 beings from different worlds could build something beautiful together, or if he would spend the rest of his life as an honored prisoner in an alien paradise. Either way, there was no going back now. The first week aboard the Zephyrian vessel nearly killed Marcus 3 times. The initial crisis came on day 2 when he awoke gasping, his lungs burning as if filled with liquid fire. Emergency alarms wailed through the ship's bioneural networks, their harmonics designed to alert Zephyrian physiology rather than human ears. Marcus stumbled from his sleeping alcove, vision blurring, only to find Thesara already at his side with a breathing apparatus. The atmospheric processors miscalculated, she explained tersely while sealing the mask over his face. Human oxygen requirements fluctuate more than our databases indicated. Your stress levels during sleep created unexpected metabolic demands. Sweet, clean air flooded his lungs and Marcus collapsed against the organic wall, shaking. I dreamed I was drowning, he gasped. But I was drowning in my sleep. Lyrelai appeared with medical scanners that looked like living jewelry, their surfaces crawling with microscopic diagnostics. Your brain chemistry is fascinating, she murmured, running the devices over his head and chest. Human neural activity during unconsciousness is chaotic compared to our ordered dream states. No wonder your body couldn't regulate itself properly. The second near-death experience came during what should have been a simple meal. The Zephyrians had synthesized foods based on human nutritional requirements, creating substances that looked like jeweled fruits and tasted like nothing Marcus had ever experienced. The problem wasn't flavor. It was the fact that human and Zephyrian digestive bacteria were not only incompatible, but actively hostile to each other. Marcus spent 18 hours in what could charitably be called biological warfare within his own intestines. Thesara held his head while he retched into waste recycling units that thankfully didn't judge the species of their contents. Lyrelai worked frantically with the ship's medical systems to synthesize probiotic treatments that wouldn't kill him. I'm beginning to understand why first contact usually ends in extinction. Marcus groaned between waves of nausea. We're just too different. Difference is not incompatibility, Thesara replied firmly, her cool hands surprisingly comforting on his fevered skin. Zephyrian evolution taught us to adapt to extreme variations. Our ancestors survived by learning to thrive in conditions that would destroy lesser species. You are showing similar resilience. The third crisis was psychological rather than physical, but no less dangerous. On day 6, Marcus suffered what human psychology would classify as a complete dissociative break. The constant alien surroundings, the strange sensations, the isolation from anything remotely familiar, finally overwhelmed his mind's ability to process reality. He found himself curled in a corner of the observation deck, staring at stars that formed no constellations he recognized, convinced that he was dead and trapped in some incomprehensible afterlife. When Lyrelai discovered him, he was muttering nursery rhymes in a voice that didn't sound like his own. Marcus, she said gently, settling beside him with careful movements. You are experiencing what our healers call reality displacement. It happens to Zephyrians who travel too far from home energy matrices. You are not losing your mind. You are grieving for your entire world. Her pattern shifted to deep, soothing blues and purples, and Marcus found his breathing gradually slowing. "How do you know?" he whispered. "Because I experienced it myself when I first left the Seventh Star House," she admitted. "I was barely out of adolescence, sent to study at the crystal depths where Thessera lived. Everything was wrong. The light, the gravity, the way thoughts moved through the bio-neural networks. I spent 3 cycles convinced I was dissolving into quantum foam." "What helped you?" Lyrelai gestured toward Thessera, who was approaching with what looked like a cup made of living crystal. "She did. Thessera taught me that adaptation doesn't mean abandoning what you were. It means expanding what you can become." The liquid Thessera offered tasted like starlight might, if starlight had flavor. "It's a neural stabilizer," she explained. "It won't change your brain chemistry, but it will help you process the overwhelming input you're receiving. Think of it as temporary scaffolding while your mind builds new frameworks." As the days passed, Marcus began to notice subtle changes in himself and his alien wives. His body was adapting to the ship's environment with surprising speed. His inner ear adjusted to the variable gravity. His eyes became more sensitive to the bioluminescent lighting. Even his skin seemed to process the recycled atmosphere more efficiently. More interesting were the changes in Lyrelai and Thessera. They began incorporating human customs into their daily routines without being asked. Thessera started each day with something resembling coffee, synthesized from Marcus's genetic memories and adjusted for Zephyrian biochemistry. Lyrelai experimented with linear time perception instead of her species' natural quantum awareness, claiming it helped her understand human emotional progression. "You're changing yourselves for me," Marcus observed one evening as they shared what had become their ritual meal together. "We are changing ourselves with you," Lyrelai corrected. "There is a difference. When Zephyrians bond, we do not simply connect existing selves. We become new selves together." Thessera nodded agreement. "The High Council chose us specifically because we were willing to undergo fundamental change. Most of our kind prefer stability, but we sought growth. You represent the ultimate growth opportunity." Marcus considered this. "Among humans, we have a saying, 'Love changes you.' But I always thought it meant small adjustments, compromises. You're talking about something much more profound." "We are talking about evolution," Thessera said simply. "Not biological evolution, that takes millions of cycles. Conscious evolution, chosen change, the decision to become something greater than what you were alone." The conversation was interrupted by an urgent chime from the ship's navigation systems. Lyrelai's patterns immediately shifted to alertness as she interfaced with the bio-neural network. "We're receiving priority communications from both the High Council and the Terran Federation," she announced. Marcus felt his stomach drop. "What kind of communications?" Thessera was already accessing secondary channels, her expression growing grim. "Both governments are expressing concern about the success of our mission. Apparently, there are factions on both sides who prefer the certainty of war to the risk of change." The implications hit Marcus like a physical blow. "They want us to fail." "Worse," Lyrelai said quietly. "They want us to never reach our destination at all. Long-range sensors are detecting ships moving to intercept us. Vessels from both fleets flying in formation." Marcus stared out at the stars, realizing that his greatest challenge wasn't adapting to alien biology or psychology. It was surviving those who feared what he and his wives represented. Proof that different species could not only coexist, but transform each other into something entirely new. "What do we do?" he asked. Thessera's patterns blazed with fierce determination. "We survive, we adapt. We show them that evolution cannot be stopped by those too afraid to change." The ship's quantum drive hummed with increasing intensity as they altered course, racing toward an uncertain future, while forces from both their homeworlds converged to destroy what they had begun to build together. The first attack came without warning. Marcus was in the ship's biogarden, attempting what Lyrelai called symbiotic meditation, with a cluster of flowering organisms that responded to human neural patterns. When the entire vessel shuddered under weapons fire, emergency bioluminescence flooded the chamber in warning reds and oranges as Thessera's voice echoed through the ship's consciousness network. "Combat positions. Multiple hostiles emerging from quantum fold." Marcus had trained for space combat during his military service. but nothing had prepared him for warfare aboard a living ship. The vessel's pain resonated through every surface as energy beams scored its hull. He could feel the ship's distress like a physical weight in his chest, and for a terrifying moment he wondered if he was somehow connecting to its bio-neural network. He stumbled onto the bridge to find his wives working in perfect synchronization, their hands dancing across control surfaces that reshaped themselves in response to their touch. Display screens showed 6 ships in pursuit, 3 bearing Terran Federation markings, 3 sporting the crystalline signatures of Zephyrian military vessels. "They're not trying to destroy us," Relish said, her patterns flickering between analysis and alarm. "The weapon signatures suggest capture rather than elimination." "Capture for what purpose?" Marcus demanded, strapping himself into a command chair that immediately molded itself to his human anatomy. Thesara's expression was grim. "Show trials, public executions, proof that unity between our species is impossible." Her hands moved across the navigation matrix and Marcus felt the ship veer sharply as she dodged another coordinated attack. "They want to make examples of us." Through the view screen, Marcus watched the enemy formation close in with military precision. The human ships moved in predictable attack patterns he recognized from Federation tactics manuals. The Zephyrian vessels flowed like liquid mercury, their movements following quantum probability rather than Newtonian physics. Separately, either force would be formidable. Together, they were nearly unstoppable. "Can we fight them?" he asked. "This is a diplomatic vessel," Relish replied, her attention split between defensive systems and long-range communications. "It has shields and evasion capabilities but no weapons. We were meant to represent peace, not warfare." Another barrage struck their shields and Marcus watched power levels fluctuate across the ship's systems. "How long can we run?" "At current drain rates, perhaps 6 hours, Thesara calculated. But that assumes they don't call in additional reinforcements, which they certainly will." Marcus studied the tactical display, his military training engaging despite the alien technology. "What if we don't run?" Both women turned to stare at him. "Explain," Relish said. "They expect us to flee towards Zephyrian space, where you have allies and refuge. Instead, we head toward the neutral zone border. There's an abandoned research station there, Station Kepler 442. If we can reach it, we might be able to send a message to the moderate factions on both sides." "That station has been dark for over a year," Thesara protested. "Its systems are likely defunct. But it's also the site where first peaceful contact was established," Marcus countered. "Symbolically, it's the perfect place to make our stand. And more importantly, it's the last place they'll expect us to go." Lireley's patterns shifted to rapid calculation mode. "The quantum fold generators have enough power for one major jump. If we're wrong about the station's condition, we die," Marcus finished. "But if we keep running, we die anyway, just more slowly. This way we have a chance to accomplish something before they catch us." The decision crystallized between them without words. Thesara engaged the quantum drive and Marcus felt reality twist around them as space folded like origami. The sensation was unlike anything in human experience, simultaneously falling and flying, expanding and contracting, existing everywhere and nowhere at once. When normal space reasserted itself, they hung in the shadow of Station Kepler 442, a massive structure that looked like a metallic flower frozen in the moment of blooming. The station's running lights were dark, its docking bays sealed, but Marcus could see that its basic structure remained intact. "Life support is marginal but functional," Relish reported after scanning the facility. "Someone has been maintaining critical systems remotely." "The question is who?" Thesara murmured, already preparing docking procedures. "And whether they're friend or enemy." Their ship's bio-neural networks interfaced with the station's quantum computers, establishing communication protocols between living and artificial intelligence. Marcus watched data streams flow between the systems like conversations in languages he couldn't understand, but somehow felt the meaning of. "There are people aboard," Relish announced, her patterns brightening with surprise. "Human and Zephyrian life signs working together in the research levels." "Impossible," Marcus said automatically. "The station was evacuated when the war began." "Not evacuated," came a new voice through the communication system. "Hidden." The view screen activated, showing a human woman with graying hair and eyes that held the same determined exhaustion Marcus recognized in veteran officers. Beside her stood a Zephyrian male whose patterns indicated advanced age and deep wisdom. "I'm Dr. Sarah Martinez," the woman continued, "former head of the Kepler Research Initiative. This is Scholar Vexhai of the Truth-Seeking Collective. We've been monitoring your situation." Marcus felt hope stirring in his chest. "You're the scientists who established first contact protocols." "Among other things," Dr. Martinez said dryly. "We also predicted that both governments would eventually try to sabotage peace efforts. That's why we stayed behind when the station was officially closed. Someone needs to preserve what we've learned about interspecies cooperation." Scholar Vexhai stepped forward, his ancient patterns shifting to welcome warmth. "Young ones, you have done something remarkable. In 3 weeks, you have achieved biological and psychological adaptations that our models predicted would take months or years. You are living proof that our species can evolve together. That's exactly why they want us dead," Thessera said bitterly. "Yes?" Dr. Martinez agreed, "which is why you're going to help us change the paradigm entirely." The station's docking systems engaged, drawing their ship into protective embrace within the facility's superstructure. As the airlock sealed and atmosphere equalized, Marcus realized they weren't just seeking refuge, they were joining something larger than themselves. "What exactly are you asking us to do?" he said. Scholar Vexhai's pattern shifted to something Marcus was learning to recognize as Zephyrian humor. "We're asking you to save both our civilizations," the ancient being said, "by showing them what they could become." Through the station's sensors, Marcus watched their pursuers emerge from quantum fold, forming an aggressive perimeter around Kepler 442. The hunt had found them, but now they had allies, resources, and something more dangerous than any weapon: the truth about what humans and Zephyrians could accomplish together. The real battle was about to begin, and it would be fought not with energy beams and shields, but with ideas that could reshape 2 entire civilizations. The research facility hidden within station, Kepler 442, defied everything Marcus thought he knew about the war between their species. Dr. Martinez led them through corridors where human technology had grown together with Zephyrian bioneural networks, creating hybrid systems that seemed to think and feel. Walls pulsed gently with data streams, while holographic displays showed star charts updated by living computational organisms. The air itself felt different, charged with possibilities Marcus couldn't name. "This is impossible," Thessera whispered, her patterns flickering with wonder and disbelief. "The integration between our technologies, it would require years of collaborative research." 15 years, actually," Scholar Vexhai replied, his ancient form moving with surprising grace through the hybrid environment. "We began this work long before official first contact was established." Marcus stopped walking. 15 years? But first contact was only 5 years ago. Dr. Martinez smiled grimly. "Official first contact, yes. Unofficial contact began when we detected Zephyrian quantum signatures in this system and decided to investigate rather than report it to the military. Best decision we ever made, as it turns out." They entered a vast chamber where the impossible became routine. Human and Zephyrian researchers worked side by side, their species differences creating complementary strengths rather than barriers. Marcus watched a human physicist collaborate with a Zephyrian quantum intuitive to solve equations that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Nearby, a Zephyrian bioengineer consulted with human geneticists over what looked like living mathematics. "The war," Relish said slowly, her patterns shifting through confusion and growing realization. "If this cooperation was possible all along, why did our species fight?" "Because certain factions on both sides needed conflict more than they needed peace," Scholar Vexhai replied. His patterns darkened with old anger. "Fear is a powerful tool for maintaining control. Both the Terran Federation's military-industrial complex and the Zephyrian Orthodox hierarchies profit from eternal struggle." Dr. Martinez activated a holographic display showing military expenditures and resource allocations for both civilizations. "War keeps populations focused on external threats instead of internal problems. It justifies authoritarian policies and enormous military budgets. Peace would require both governments to solve actual problems rather than manufacturing enemies." Marcus studied the data streams, his military experience helping him decode the implications. "You're saying the war was artificial from the beginning?" "Not artificial, engineered," Dr. Martinez corrected. "The initial conflicts were real enough, but they were deliberately escalated and perpetuated by groups who benefited from the fear and chaos, including some within both our governments who knew about this facility, Scholar Vexhai added. They've been working actively to prevent peace negotiations while publicly calling for them. The scope of the deception hit Marcus like a physical blow. The marriage treaty, was that part of their plan too? No, Thesera said firmly, her patterns brightening with certainty. The moderate factions proposed it independently. That's why both extremes are so determined to stop us. We represent proof that their engineered conflict is unnecessary. Lyrelai moved to one of the collaborative workstations, her hands dancing across interfaces that responded to both human and Zephyrian neural patterns. What you've built here, this hybrid technology, it's decades ahead of anything either civilization has achieved independently. That's the real secret, Dr. Martinez said, pride evident in her voice. Neither species is complete alone. Human linear thinking combined with Zephyrian quantum intuition, Terran engineering precision merged with Zephyrian bioneural adaptability. Together, we're capable of things that seem like magic to our separated civilizations, Scholar. Vexhai gestured toward a section of the chamber where researchers were working on something that looked like crystallized starlight. We've developed sustainable quantum energy, biological computers that can process infinite variables, even preliminary work on consciousness transfer between species. Consciousness transfer? Marcus's voice cracked. We mean the possibility of true unity, Scholar Vexhai confirmed. Not just cooperation or alliance, but actual shared consciousness between human and Zephyrian minds. The barriers between us could become voluntary rather than absolute. The implications overwhelmed Marcus's ability to process them. If such technology existed, it would revolutionize not just both civilizations but the entire concept of what it meant to be a sentient being. It would also terrify both governments beyond rational thought. That's why they want us all dead, he realized. Not just to stop the peace treaty, but to prevent this research from reaching the public. Exactly, Dr. Martinez said. But we've been preparing for this moment. Every breakthrough, every collaboration, every success story has been documented and prepared for broad distribution. We just needed the right catalyst to release it all. Us, Lyrelai said quietly. We're the catalyst. You're the living proof, Scholar Vexhai confirmed. 3 beings from different worlds who chose to evolve together instead of remaining apart. Your very existence challenges everything. Both governments have taught their people about the impossibility of unity. Warning alarms began sounding throughout the facility. Dr. Martinez's expression hardened as she accessed the station's sensor networks. They're moving to attack positions. 6 more ships just arrived, a full battle group from each side. Marcus watched the tactical display update, showing 12 warships surrounding the station in perfect formation. How long do we have? They're demanding our surrender, Thesera reported from a communications console. Standard terms: immediate capitulation or complete destruction. There's a third option, Dr. Martinez said, her eyes bright with dangerous inspiration. We've been developing emergency broadcast protocols that can penetrate both civilizations' communication networks simultaneously. Every home screen, every personal device, every public information system in human and Zephyrian space. A full data dump of everything we've discovered, Scholar Vexhai added. 15 years of collaborative research, proof of governmental deception, and most importantly, recordings of what you 3 have accomplished together. Marcus understood immediately. You're talking about revolution. We're talking about evolution, Dr. Martinez corrected. Both species learning the truth about what they could become. The governments can't suppress information once it's reached every citizen simultaneously. Lyrelai's patterns blazed with fierce determination. How long do we need to prepare the broadcast? 18 minutes, Scholar Vexhai calculated. But the attacking forces won't wait that long. Marcus looked at his wives, seeing the same resolve in their expressions that he felt building in his own chest. Then we buy you 18 minutes. How? Thesera demanded. We have no weapons, and they have enough firepower to vaporize this station. Marcus smiled, feeling more human than he had since leaving Earth. We do what humans do best, he said. We improvise, we adapt, and we refuse to give up even when the odds are impossible. The next 18 minutes would determine whether 2 civilizations learned to grow together or destroyed each other in fear of change. Marcus had never felt more ready for a fight in his entire life. Marcus had exactly 17 minutes to save two civilizations with nothing but words, and the most audacious bluff in military history. "Open a channel to the fleet commanders," he ordered, settling into the station's hybrid command chair. The bio-neural interfaces responded to his neural patterns, while quantum processors amplified his human determination into something both species could understand. The view screen activated, showing two faces that represented everything wrong with their respective civilizations. Admiral Rebecca Hawks of the Terran Federation, her expression carved from military stone and decades of authorized brutality. Across from her, Warseeker Zalthes of the Orthodox hierarchies, his patterns blazing with righteous fury and unquestioned certainty. "Commander Chen," Admiral Hawks said coldly, "you will surrender yourself and your alien accomplices immediately, or we will be forced to destroy the station and everyone aboard." "Traitor Bon Marcus Human," Warseeker Zalthes added, his translated words dripping with contempt. "You have contaminated yourself beyond redemption. Only cleansing fire can restore the purity of both species." Marcus smiled, drawing on every poker game he'd ever played and every desperate mission he'd ever commanded. "Gentlemen, ladies, you seem to be under a severe misunderstanding about your current tactical situation." Admiral Hawks's expression didn't change. "Explain yourself, Commander." "You're not surrounding a research station," Marcus said calmly. "You're surrounding the most important strategic facility in known space, operated by the most dangerous people your governments have ever encountered. Scientists who've spent 15 years proving that everything you believe is wrong, Warseeker." Zalthes's patterns flared with dismissive anger. "Words of lies. This facility has been dead empty for cycles." Marcus leaned back in the command chair, his posture radiating casual confidence he absolutely didn't feel. "Then explain the power signatures your sensors are detecting. The quantum resonance patterns. The bioneural activity that's been running continuously since official evacuation." He could see uncertainty flicker across both commanders' faces. Good. Doubt was a weapon he could use. "Dr. Martinez," Marcus continued, "would you mind showing our guests the Prometheus project?" Dr. Martinez, catching on immediately, activated holographic displays showing the hybrid technologies they'd developed. To observers unfamiliar with the research, the images would look like something from humanity's darkest science fiction nightmares. Living machines, consciousness transfer apparatus, reality manipulation devices. Admiral Hawks leaned forward. "What exactly are we looking at, Commander?" "The future," Marcus said simply. 15 years of collaborative development between our species has produced technologies that make your fleets obsolete. Consciousness-guided quantum weapons that can target specific neural patterns across entire star systems. Biomechanical systems that can convert matter to energy and back again at will. Reality manipulation protocols that make concepts like distance and time negotiable. The bluff was enormous, but Marcus could see it working. Both commanders were military minds trained to assess threats and capabilities. The technology displays, while impressive, were actually peaceful research tools, but presented correctly, they looked like the ultimate weapons of war. "You're claiming this station could defend itself against 12 capital ships?" Admiral Hawks asked skeptically. "I'm claiming this station could erase your fleets from existence without disturbing the coffee in my cup," Marcus replied. "But that would be wasteful, don't you think? Instead, let me demonstrate something much more interesting." He nodded to Scholar Vexhai, who activated what the Zephyrian called the Unity Matrix, a harmless consciousness-sharing device used for deep research collaboration. To the watching commanders, however, it would look like something far more sinister. Marcus placed his hand on the bio-neural interface, and immediately his awareness expanded to touch Lyrelai and Thessera's minds. For a brief, glorious moment he experienced true Zephyrian thought, quantum perception, probability intuition, and emotional resonance beyond anything human psychology could achieve. Simultaneously, his wives experienced human consciousness, linear time, focused determination, and the fierce protective instinct that had driven his species to conquer an entire world. The connection lasted only seconds, but the observers couldn't know that. To them, it looked like Marcus had just demonstrated voluntary consciousness merger with alien minds. "Impressive party trick," Admiral Hawks said, but Marcus could hear the uncertainty in her voice. "It's not a party trick," Marcus said. his voice carrying new harmonics from the brief neural connection. It's evolution. The research conducted at this facility has proven that human and Zephyrian consciousness can not only coexist, but enhance each other exponentially. We're not just allies or marriage partners. We're becoming something entirely new. War-seeker Zalthes's patterns shifted to what Marcus was learning to recognize as deep unease. Contamination fusion is forbidden blasphemy. The purity of thought must be maintained. Must it? Marcus challenged. Because from where I'm sitting, the purity you're protecting has given both our civilizations nothing but warfare, stagnation, and fear. Meanwhile, this contamination has produced technologies and capabilities that neither species could achieve alone. He gestured toward the research displays, where human and Zephyrian scientists continued their collaborative work, oblivious to the conversation that would determine their fate. Look at them. Look at what they've accomplished. Then ask yourself, are you here to protect your people or to protect the systems that keep your people weak? Admiral Hawks was studying the tactical readings from her ship's sensors, and Marcus could see growing alarm in her expression. The station's hybrid systems were producing energy signatures unlike anything in Terran databases, not because they were weapons, but because they represented entirely new categories of technology. Commander Chen, she said carefully, what exactly are you proposing? I'm proposing you call off this attack and allow us to complete our mission, Marcus said. In return, I won't activate the station's defensive systems and demonstrate why bringing weapons to a science fight was a tactical error. It was the biggest bluff of his life, backed by nothing but confidence and the hope that both commanders were too professional to risk their fleets on incomplete intelligence. War-seeker Zalthes was consulting with someone off-screen, his patterns flickering between rage and growing uncertainty. The Orthodox hierarchies demand proof of your weapons claims. Marcus smiled. You want proof? Dr. Martinez, please show them the quantum resonance cascade we used to modify local space-time around the station. Dr. Martinez activated a perfectly harmless research protocol that created beautiful light patterns. In the space around Kepler 442, the lights danced and swirled in mathematically perfect formations, which to military observers would look exactly like reality warping. Defensive fields coming online. Both fleet commanders were now consulting frantically with their tactical advisors. Marcus could see the doubt spreading through their command structures like an infection. Good. Doubt would keep them from shooting until the research team finished their broadcast. Preparations. 12 minutes remaining. Scholar Vexhai whispered through their private channel. 12 minutes to maintain the bluff. 12 minutes to convince two military commanders that attacking was suicide. 12 minutes to change the course of galactic history with nothing but words, will, and the desperate hope that fear of the unknown could overcome fear of change. Marcus straightened in the command chair, his hybrid neural connections allowing him to feel his wife's support flowing through the station's consciousness networks. He wasn't alone anymore, and that made all the difference. So, gentlemen and ladies, he said, his voice carrying absolute conviction, what's it going to be? Evolution or extinction? The next 8 minutes stretched, like hours as Marcus watched two civilizations balance on the edge of transformation or destruction. Admiral Hawks was receiving increasingly frantic reports from her tactical officers. The station's defensive systems, actually Dr. Martinez's ingenious light show, were producing sensor readings that made no sense according to human physics. Energy patterns that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions, quantum resonances that suggested the facility could fold space-time around itself, and most disturbing of all, bioneural signatures that indicated the station itself might be alive and aware. Admiral, came a voice from her bridge crew, we're detecting massive data compilation in progress. Whatever they're doing, it's building towards something significant. Warseeker Zalthus was having similar difficulties with his own tactical assessments. Zephyrian sensors were designed to read quantum probabilities, and the station was generating probability cascades that his instruments interpreted as reality-warping defensive systems. Worse, the bioneural networks were producing consciousness patterns unlike anything in their databases, hybrid thought forms that seemed to combine human and Zephyrian neural architecture. 4 minutes, Scholar Vexhai whispered. Marcus could feel sweat beading on his forehead despite the station's perfect climate control. The bluff was holding but barely. Both commanders were professional soldiers who would eventually override caution with duty if he couldn't give them a face-saving way to retreat. "I can see you're both analyzing our capabilities," Marcus said, maintaining his calm tone while internally screaming with tension. "I understand your skepticism. After all, if technology like this existed, why wouldn't your governments know about it?" "Exactly our question," Admiral Hawks replied tightly. "Because," Marcus said, "your governments have been too busy maintaining profitable wars to notice that their best scientists were solving the universe's greatest puzzles right under their noses." "Dr. Martinez, Scholar of HFY, would you please show our guest the classified communications we've intercepted?" This part, at least, wasn't a bluff. The hybrid systems had indeed been monitoring military communications from both sides, and what they'd discovered painted a damning picture of governmental deception. Holographic displays activated around the command center, showing authenticated message logs, budget allocations, and strategic planning documents that both fleet commanders were certainly not supposed to know about. Marcus watched their faces as they processed the evidence of their own government's manipulation. "These documents," Admiral Hawks began, her voice trailing off as she read, "show that both the Terran Federation and the Zephyrian Orthodox hierarchies have been deliberately perpetuating conflict while publicly calling for peace." Marcus finished. "Your own superiors have been engineering battles, suppressing diplomatic overtures, and eliminating moderate voices on both sides." Warseeker Zalthes's patterns blazed with something Marcus was learning to recognize as betrayed fury. The Orthodox hierarchies would never. These records claim we rejected 17 separate peace initiatives. "Because peace doesn't require enormous military budgets," Dr. Martinez said, stepping into view of the communication array. "Admiral Hawks, your own fleet's budget has increased 400% since the war began. Warseeker Zalthes, the Orthodox hierarchy's political power is entirely dependent on external threat justification." 2 minutes, Scholar HFY announced. Marcus could see the moment when both commanders realized they were pawns in a much larger game. Admiral Hawks was a career officer who'd lost friends in battles that, according to these documents, had been unnecessarily provoked by her own government. Warseeker Zalthes had dedicated his existence to protecting Zephyrian purity from contamination that the evidence suggested was not only harmless but beneficial. "Commander Chen," Admiral Hawks said slowly, "assuming these documents are authentic, what exactly are you proposing to do with this information?" "We're going to give it to everyone," Marcus replied. "Every human, every Zephyrian, every sentient being in both civilizations. Complete disclosure of what their governments have been doing, combined with proof of what cooperation between our species can actually achieve. That would cause—" Warseeker Zalthus began, then stopped as the implications hit him. "Revolution," Marcus confirmed. "The end of artificial conflict. The beginning of actual progress. And yes, the complete transformation of both civilizations as we know them." 1 minute, Scholar HFY said, his ancient patterns flickering with anticipation. Admiral Hawks was consulting with someone off-screen, probably her fleet's intelligence officer, Marcus guessed. "Commander, if you release this information, you'll destroy the current governmental structures of both civilizations." "Yes," Marcus said simply, "and replace them with something better. Something based on truth instead of manufactured fear. The chaos alone could kill billions," Warseeker Zalthes protested. "The current system is already killing billions," Thessera interjected, her voice carrying harmonics that made both commanders pause. "Slowly through war and resource waste and the suppression of technologies that could solve every major problem facing both species." Relish stepped forward, her patterns shifting to something that even non-Zephyrians could recognize as profound sincerity. "We have lived the truth you fear," she said. "Human and Zephyrian consciousness can merge without losing individual identity. Our technologies can combine to create capabilities beyond either species' dreams. The only thing preventing paradise is the fear of those who profit from keeping us apart." 30 seconds, Scholar HFY announced. Marcus stood, drawing on reserves of determination he didn't know he possessed. "Admirals, warseekers, officers of both fleets, you have a choice. You can destroy this station, eliminate the evidence, and return to your governments as heroes who preserved the status quo. Your civilizations will continue their profitable war until resources are exhausted, and both species collapse into barbarism." He paused, meeting both commanders' eyes through the communication array. Or you can stand down, allow the truth to reach your people, and become part of the greatest transformation in galactic history. 10 seconds, Scholar Vex High said. Admiral Hawks took a deep breath. All ships power down weapons. Maintain defensive positions, but do not engage unless directly attacked. Warseeker Zalthes's pattern shifted to what Marcus hoped was reluctant agreement. Orthodox fleet assume monitoring positions. We will observe this development. Transmission commencing, Dr. Martinez announced. Across the galaxy, on every human world and Zephyrian crystal city, communication networks activated simultaneously. Emergency broadcasts overrode regular programming, as 15 years of suppressed research flooded into public awareness. Military communications logs exposed the artificial nature of the war. Scientific discoveries revealed the incredible potential of interspecies cooperation, and most importantly, recordings of Marcus Relish and Thessera demonstrated that evolution between the species was not only possible, but already happening. Marcus collapsed into the command chair as the magnitude of what they'd just accomplished hit him. They'd just triggered the most massive information revolution in galactic history. What happens now? He asked. Dr. Martinez smiled, her expression holding exhaustion and triumph in equal measure. Now we find out what two civilizations do when they discover their governments have been lying to them for 5 years, and that everything they believed about the universe was wrong. Through the station's sensors, Marcus could see both fleets holding position, their commanders undoubtedly receiving increasingly frantic communications from their superiors. Soon, those superiors would be dealing with planetary populations demanding answers, change, and accountability. The greatest experiment in galactic history had begun, and there was no stopping it now. 6 months later, Marcus stood on the observation deck of New Harmony Station, watching ships from dozens of human and Zephyrian worlds dock in perfect coordination. The massive facility, built in the wreckage of the old Warfleet staging areas, represented everything the Truth broadcast had made possible. The revolution hadn't been bloodless, but it had been swift. Within days of the information release, both civilizations had experienced what historians were already calling the Great Awakening. Populations that had endured years of artificial conflict suddenly understood how they'd been manipulated, and their response had been unified fury directed at the architects of deception. The Terran Federation's military-industrial complex had collapsed within weeks as defense contractors found themselves under investigation, and their political allies abandoned them. The Zephyrian Orthodox hierarchies had suffered an even more dramatic fall, as the bio-neural networks they'd tried to control turned against them, spreading truth faster than any propaganda could counteract it. The morning reports, Relish said, approaching with a data tablet that seemed to grow from her palm. Her patterns had evolved over the months, incorporating human-inspired linear designs that made her emotions readable even to untrained observers. 17 new colony ships launched today, all with mixed crews. Marcus accepted the tablet, marveling at how natural the biotechnological interface felt after months of adaptation. And the research projects? Beyond all projections, Thessera replied, joining them at the observation window. Her own patterns had shifted toward warmer spectrums, influenced by human emotional expressiveness. The consciousness transfer protocols are ready for voluntary testing. The quantum biological computers are solving problems that would have taken either species centuries to address alone. Through the transparent aluminum window, Marcus watched a sight that still filled him with wonder. Human children played with young Zephyrians in the station's biogardens, their laughter creating harmonies that the facility's neural networks translated into light patterns. Elderly humans worked alongside ancient Zephyrians in research laboratories, their combined perspectives producing insights neither could have achieved separately. Dr. Martinez wants to see us in the diplomatic wing, Relish continued. The Unity Council is ready to present their findings. The Unity Council represented the greatest political innovation to emerge from the upheaval. A governing body composed equally of humans and Zephyrians, making decisions through consensus rather than domination. Marcus had been skeptical when it was first proposed, but the results spoke for themselves. Complex problems that had seemed impossible were being solved through the combination of human determination and Zephyrian quantum intuition. They walked through corridors where the station's bioneural networks pulsed with the thoughts and dreams of thousands of beings from both species. Marcus no longer found the sensation alien. After months of gradual neural adaptation, he could sense the collective consciousness that permeated the facility like a gentle current of shared awareness. The diplomatic wing bustled with activity as representatives from both civilizations prepared for what everyone hoped would be the formal end of the interspecies conflict. Peace treaties were being drafted in languages that combined human linguistic precision with Zephyrian probability concepts, creating documents that captured meaning in ways no single species could have achieved. Dr. Martinez met them at the council chambers, her expression radiant with satisfaction. The vote was unanimous, she announced. Both species formally accept the Harmony Accords. The war is officially over. Marcus felt something break loose in his chest, a tension he hadn't realized he'd been carrying since the day he'd volunteered for the diplomatic marriage. It's really over? More than over, Scholar Vexhai added, approaching with patterns that blazed with joy. It's transformed into something beautiful. The former military fleets are being converted into exploration vessels. Instead of fighting each other, both civilizations are preparing to explore the galaxy together. The implications overwhelmed Marcus. Humanity and the Zephyrian civilization working together could accomplish things that neither had dreamed possible alone. Faster-than-light travel guided by quantum intuition, terraforming directed by bioneural networks, even the possibility of contacting other species as partners rather than potential enemies. There is one more thing, Relish said, her patterns shifting to something Marcus had never seen before, a complex weaving of joy, anticipation, and profound love that made his breath catch. The consciousness transfer research has produced an unexpected result, Thesara added, her own patterns echoing her partner's emotional resonance. The voluntary neural connections we've been sharing have created something unprecedented. Marcus looked at his wives, seeing changes in them that went beyond cultural adaptation. Their patterns had begun incorporating elements that seemed almost human, not in appearance, but in the emotional depth and fierce protectiveness he recognized as distinctly Terran traits. What kind of result? He asked. Dr. Martinez smiled. Congratulations, Marcus. You're going to be a father. All three of you are going to be parents to something that's never existed before, a child that combines human and Zephyrian consciousness from the moment of conception. The universe seemed to stop rotating. Marcus stared at his wives, seeing in their expressions the same wonder and terror that he felt coursing through his own mind. A child born from two species, raised in a universe where cooperation had replaced conflict, capable of things none of them could imagine. How is that even possible? He whispered. The bioneural connections we've been sharing have created quantum entanglement between our consciousness patterns, Relish explained, her voice soft with awe. The child will be born with access to human linear thinking and Zephyrian quantum awareness simultaneously. A bridge between worlds, Thesara added. The first of a new generation that will never know the artificial barriers that kept our species apart. Marcus moved to the observation window, looking out at the galaxy that stretched beyond New Harmony Station. Somewhere out there, other species waited to be discovered. Other civilizations faced their own conflicts and challenges. And someday his child, their child, might help solve those problems with capabilities that transcended the limitations of any single species. What do we call them? He asked. Human Zephyrian hybrids? A new species entirely? We call them Hope, Dr. Martinez said softly. We call them the future. As Marcus watched, more ships arrived at the station, vessels from both civilizations bringing scientists, artists, philosophers, and dreamers who wanted to be part of building something greater than either species had achieved alone. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders, and for the first time in either civilization's history, they would explore it together. The diplomatic marriage that had begun as a desperate gamble for peace had become the foundation for the greatest evolutionary leap in galactic history. And somewhere in the bioneural networks of New Harmony Station, new consciousness was beginning to form, consciousness that would never know the fear and hatred that had kept their parent species apart. Marcus placed his hands on his wives' shoulders, feeling through their neural connections the love that bound them together across the gulf between worlds. They had given each other more than peace, they had given each other transformation. The war was over. The future had begun, and in that future, love would be the force that carried two species to the stars.